Hi everyone, Lisa Haven here, and I've got a huge report to share with you guys today, and that is this. Senator Tom Cotton has just blown the lid on the U.S. military's deepest, darkest secret. And in all reality, this secret needs to come to the forefront because it really involves a literal radical leftist takeover of our U.S. military. And if we allow such things to continue in our military, then you can guarantee that every ounce of freedom that we, the American people, hold will be taken away. These are the exact same tactics that Marxists and radical leftists have used in order to take over countries. And right now, the United States military is at stake. Now, before I get into the report, I want to remind you, please get on over to restrictedrepublic.com. Now, I started this website due to all the censorship that has been happening against patriots. If you really want to know what's going on right now in society, you've got to subscribe there. We're really limited here on these social media leftist controlled platforms. So get on over to restrictedrepublic.com, check out some of the unrestricted content. And right now you can get it for $5 a month for 1 year using the code Trump. So check it out at restrictedrepublic.com. All right, so let's dive into what's happening to our U.S. military. Well, for starters, I want to start with this report, and this is on Breitbart.com, but here it is. Dan Crenshaw launches whistleblower page to receive complaints on military wokeness. Now, Dan Crenshaw felt the need to create that particular hotline for a couple of reasons. One, being that he has already received multiple complaints from military personnel on leftist radical policies that have invaded our U.S. military. And the second being the hiring or appointment of the DOD advisor, Bishop Garrison, who I've already talked about here on my channel, but I'll get into him more in a moment. But basically, through this tip line, which is only less than 1 month old, they have already received hundreds of tips from our U.S. military. Take a look at this article on NewYorkPost.com. Cotton and Crenshaw, critical race theory whistleblower line, has already gotten hundreds of tips. But just what kind of tips are the U.S. military revealing via these hotlines? Well, in the clip that I'm about to show you, which is the bombshell by Senator Tom Cotton. This clip shows in a U.S. Senate hearing, Tom Cotton having an entire packet of hundreds of reports from military personnel on wokeness in the military, and he gives an account of what some of those U.S. military personnel are reporting. Let me play that clip for you so you can hear it for yourself. Take a listen.
I have received, along with Congressman Crenshaw, several hundred whistleblower complaints about Pentagon extremist and diversity training. I want to share just a small selection of what your own troops are saying. And Mr. Chairman, I have a longer list that I'd like to submit for the record.
Without objection.
Again, this is just a few examples. One Marine told us that a military history training session was replaced with mandatory training on police brutality, white privilege, and systemic racism. He reported that several officers are now leaving his unit, citing that training. Another service member told us that their unit was required to read White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, which claims, and this is a quote, "White people raised in Western society are conditioned into a white supremacist worldview." A member of the Special Operations community has told us that they are being instructed that, quote, "the U.S. Special Operations community is racist." One Army officer relayed to us the words of his general officer who told him that the entire U.S. Army is racist. A midshipman at the Naval Academy said classmates are calling America a fundamentally racist place and that this sentiment is not contested by school administrators. An airman told us their unit was forced into a racist exercise called a privilege walk, where members of the wing were ordered to separate themselves by race and gender in order to stratify people based on their perceived privilege. One African-American officer disparagingly said, and I quote, "The Navy thinks my only value is as a black woman and not the fact that she is a highly trained military specialist." Soldiers have come forward to tell us they are being forced to watch videos about systemic racism and documentaries that rewrite America's history as a fundamentally racist and evil nation. One Space Force officer told me that 2 Guardians left his ranks in a short period of time. One was a young African American who said that after the training, She would never have joined the military had she known that it was such a hotbed of racism. The other was a white airman who said he didn't sign up to be indoctrinated and filed separation paperwork. Mr. Secretary, we're hearing reports of plummeting morale, growing mistrust between the races and sexes where none existed just 6 months ago, and unexpected retirements and separations based on these trainings alone. And again, these are not my words. These are the words of your own troops.
In other words, our U.S. military is being taught radical, leftist, extremist, old Soviet Union style policies of wokeism. This is the very thing that has turned free countries into communist countries and into countries fully in bondage. They are teaching our U.S. military white privilege, something that we still don't have a definition for. What is a white supremacist? Who exactly is a white privileged person, and what does that mean? They won't answer the question. Why? Because it goes after their political opposition, and that's it. That's the entire goal. This is how the old Soviet took over countries in the past. And it's not just that. They're teaching them things like privileged walks, where they're separated by gender and by race. That doesn't really sound like equality to me. That sounds like really pointing out the color of someone's skin, rather than basing it off of their merit. And other things that are being reported, right, that he talked about Marxist books and readings that are required, that teach about how oppressive the white race is, and teaches the other minority side that they're just victims of everything under the sun. This is pretty bad stuff. But you know what? Tom Cotton, our senator there, goes on to directly inquire, right? Lloyd Austin, our DOD secretary there, and he says, hey, I got a question for you. Take a listen to the clip and the question that he asked here.
Do you believe that any member of the military should be treated differently based on their skin color and sex? Again, yes or no will do.
Again, this question deserves more than a yes or no answer.
Mr. Secretary, I'm sorry to cut you off. Our time is limited. It is a very simple question. Should a member of the organization you lead be treated differently, in violation of the Constitution, I would add, based on their sex or the color of their skin?
No, I do not believe that, and that is
Okay.
why we have diversity, equity, and inclusion focus in the military.
It should have been a really easy question. Really easy question. But what does the leftist radical do? He beats around the bush. Well, it doesn't deserve a yes or no answer. And then when Tom Cotton goes on to reference the Constitution, how it's a constitutional right. Oh, yeah, I believe that. And then he throws in the word equity, right? We all know what that means. That's the complete opposite of equality. When you rate people differently, right? I don't think Martin Luther King Jr. would have been happy about any of this. And you know what Senator Cotton should have done? He should have asked more about Bishop Garrison. I've already revealed to you guys who this man is on many occasions, but as a reminder, let me go here. Let's start with this. This is Vox, a leftist news source here, Vox.com. The Pentagon is taking a major step to deal with its diversity problems. Bishop Garrison assuming a newly created role will directly advise Defense Secretary, who you just heard, Lloyd Austin, on diversity and inclusion issues. But just who is this Bishop Garrison? As a reminder, here's a tweet that he put out back in 2019. Silence from our congressional leaders is complicity. He, which is President Trump, is only going to get worse from here, and Trump's party and its leadership are watching it happen while doing nothing to stop it. Support for President Trump, a racist, is support for all of his belief. If you support Trump, then you are racist. That's what he's saying here. He's dragging out a lot of bad actors, misogynists, extremists, and other racists out into the light, normalizing their actions. If you support the president, President Trump at the time, you support that. There is no room otherwise, he said. There is no more, but I'm not like that talk. Because you're watching what Trump says, you're listening to his careful choice of words, and you're still willing to follow him or not speak out. So yes, you're very much like that. You're very much like a racist, he says. A racist. Wow. This is the guy who's advising Another radical leftist who says all Trump supporters are racist. And that's not the only thing that he's done, right? He's also a big supporter of the 1619 Project, which historians agree isn't history, isn't any kind of history. It's just some massive blown out of proportion thing by the New York Times. He agrees with that. He also agrees with critical race theory. Written quite a few articles on that. In fact, listen to what, right? Fox News' Peter Hegseth had to say about him. Take a listen.
This, my friends, is a purge of the Defense Department, led by a new and now powerful radical leftist, a 1619 Project activist, a hardcore social justice Democrat, a man who believes all Trump supporters are racists and extremists. And what must we do to racists? We must define them, and then we must purge them.
You heard him right. Bishop Garrison is purging, according to Peter Hegseth there, right? Pete Hegseth, he is purging our United States military. It sure feels like that's exactly what's happening, right? I don't know. But what I do know is if we lose our military, they've already taken over Hollywood. They've already taken over the music industry. They've already taken over our schools via Communist Core, Common Core. They've already taken over they have the executive office. They have our congressional offices. There will be no more freedom in the United States of America. If you've ever studied the history of the old Soviet Union, or, back what happened in Germany, anti-fascist, Antifa, right? Existed there, pushing the same theory and breakdown of society that they're pushing here in the United States of America. And it worked in those countries, folks. And they're trying to do that here in the United States of America. And look, more and more officers are coming out doing things like this. Take a look at this latest one here. This is on Washington Times. Chief of Naval Operations defends critical race theory recommendations for sailors. They're recommending reading books for our military about critical race theories, about segregation, let me rephrase that, not necessarily what happened a long time ago, but new forms of it, where white people are the oppressor and everybody else is a victim. Where white privilege and white supremacy isn't really defined, but under the radar, it's defined as a Trump supporter and a conservative or a Republican. This is the first step toward the attack on political dissidents and the opposition. What's next? Well, look at what happened in other countries. Old Soviet, to be one of those, right? This is a major thing happening right now in our once free country. And it should terrify all of us to our core, to our very core. Anyhow, as a quick reminder, please don't forget to check out my partner at healthwithlisa.com. If you guys haven't tried this collagen, I really want to encourage you to do so. It really helps with, your hair, your skin, your nails, those kinds of things, but also just the youthful lookingness of your skin. And me and my husband both take this, but this stuff is absolutely amazing. And I'm so glad that I partnered with them. And right now you can get up to 51% off the product by going to healthwithlisa.com. But check it out there and take advantage of the special offer and support what I do here on YouTube. Anyhow, I love all of you. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Lisa Haven, signing out.